Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to decide whether two events are dependent or independent. Now, dependent means the first event will affect the other event. So there's an effect on the second event depending on what happens on the first event. The independent means there's no effect on the second event with regards to what happens on the first event. And again, we're just going to have to dive into this so you get a feel for it. John picks a card at random, okay? So he's either going to pick a 2, a 3, a 4, or 5. Then without, and this is the important, without putting the first card back, he picks a second card at random. Is that second event affected by what you do on the first event? Absolutely it is. If I pick a 2 the first time, and I don't put the card back, could I pick it the second time? I couldn't. But let's say I pick a 4 the first time. Then would the 2 be available to pick the second time? It would. So what I pick the first time will affect on what I get the second time. So this is a dependent event because the second event will could have an effect, or does have an effect from what the first one is. Here, Ashley spins a spinner. At the same time, Camilla rolls a 20-sided dice. Are these two events dependent or independent? Well, with Ashley spinning a spinner, is it going to affect what Camilla rolls on the 20-sided dice? There's no effect. They're both totally what's called independent. Camilla rolling the dice, she's not going to all of a sudden have a different type of 20-sided dice if Ashley spins a 1 or a 2 or whatever. It doesn't even say what's on the spinner. But those are definitely independent. Kathleen and Albert go to the library to check out books for a book report. Are these two events dependent or independent? Books for a book report. Well, what are the two events? Well, I guess the two events is Kathleen picking a book, and Albert going and picking a book. Does what Kathleen pick affect what Albert picks? I would think it would affect it because Albert can't pick the book Kathleen picked. She's already picked it. It's not there to pick. These would be dependent because what Kathleen picks will affect what possible books are left for Albert to pick. Kara picks a card at random, puts it back. Again, this is the important part. Puts it back, then picks another card at random. So what cards are possible to be picked on the second event? Well, all of them. And that doesn't change no matter what Kara picks the first time because she's going to put it back. That means these are independent. What she picks the first time has no bearing on what she's going to pick the second time. Ian's family just bought a variety pack of cereal that contains 1 serving of each type of cereal. Ian picks a cereal to have for breakfast, and then his brother picks one. Are these two events dependent or independent? Well, if the variety pack of cereal contains 1 serving of each type of cereal, whatever Ian picks and eats, it's not there anymore for his brother to pick. So these are definitely dependent because his brother can't pick the same thing. Marbles. Joe picks a marble at random without putting the first marble back. He picks a second marble at random. Well, let's say he picks the orange marble. Could he pick an orange marble a second time? No, because he didn't put it back. But if he didn't pick the orange marble, he picked a blue or a green marble, then the second time he could pick the orange marble. So what he picks the first time affects what he picks the second time. So these would be dependent. Keep jumping back and forth, but hopefully you're realizing what it means to be dependent and independent. And it looks like there's no way for me to even jump up, so I don't think it will get any harder than this. Lucy, a teacher, is asking for her students to write down their favorite colors so they may graph the results. Are these two events dependent or independent? Lucy, a teacher, is asking her students to write down their favorite colors so they may graph the results. Asking her students to write down their favorite colors so they may graph the results. What's the first event? The first event is she's asking her students to write down their favorite colors. What's the second event? That they may graph the results. Is the colors that the students pick going to affect how the graph looks at the end? Absolutely, it's going to affect. If more of the students like blue, there'll be more blue in the graph. So these are definitely dependent. Nope, it's independent. Let's find out why. Lucy, let's see. Two events are independent if the outcome of the first event, okay, the two events are independent. The choice of one student does not affect the choice of any other student. See, I didn't understand the question. That was a poorly written question. Asking her students, because there's more than two events. If she's asking her students, does she only have two students or does she have 10 students? But even if she has 10 students, yes, what one student picks doesn't affect what the other student might pick for their favorite color. But that didn't seem like that was the two events, because asking her students, that's multiple events, where making the graph seems like it's the other event. I'm really sorry if you get a confusing question, but this helps you realize that people aren't perfect. If you get a confusing question like this and miss one, I apologize for the confusion and just do the best you can. I hope most of them won't be a confusing question. A street magician asks a volunteer to pick a card, which he is put back in the deck at the end of the trick. A few minutes later, the magician shuffles the decks and asks a different, yeah, so those are independent because he puts the card back. So I really believe most of these will be pretty straightforward. Era and Cora see a movie together. Era picks a chair first, then Cora does. Well, yes, whatever chair Leah picks, Cora can't pick it, I guess, unless he sits in her lap or something. So these would be dependent because they're not going to pick the same chair. Anyway, if you have any questions, please bring them to class.